Welcome to the Stories of Grandma's Unfiltered Tears Part 1. The words that stung like fire. My name is Margaret, and I am 73 years old. I have lived a long life, long enough to see the world transform, long enough to watch my son grow into a man, and long enough to lose many people I once thought I could never live without. But nothing in all my years, prepared me for the night I heard my husband say those words. That fat hippo disgusts me. He said it so casually, as if he were describing a meal he didn't like. As if I were not the woman who had stood by his side for 50 years. As if I were not the same girl he once called the prettiest thing God ever made. I was standing by the bedroom door. He didn't know I was there. He was talking on the phone to a friend from his old workplace. Laughing, joking, and I stood frozen, my chest constricting, my throat choking as if I had swallowed glass. He wasn't always this cruel. No, there was a time when my James adored me, back when life was kinder and hearts were softer. But over the years, little by little, piece by piece, something in him hardened, something in him changed, and I stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet. That night, when he hung up, I slipped into bed beside him with my back turned. He didn't notice my trembling shoulders. He didn't see me biting my lip to stop the sobs. He didn't care. But I heard everything, and I felt everything, and something in me cracked. Part 2. Memories I didn't ask for. I didn't sleep that night. My husband snorfled beside me, unaware of the storm inside me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow circles, each rotation pulling up memories I didn't want to face. Like the first time he called me chubby after our son was born. Or the time he told me half-jokingly that men only stay faithful if their wives keep themselves nice. Or the time he told his sister that I let myself go. I forgave each one. Because that is what wives from my generation do. We forgive, we understand, we stay, we say. He doesn't mean it, even when he does. But that night, something about those words, fat hippo, felt different. They felt vile, humiliating, dehumanizing. It wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration. A declaration that I had somehow become unlovable to the man whose vows once promised the opposite. I clutched the bedsheet tightly to stop my shaking, and a strange thought settled in my mind. I don't know this man anymore. And I'm not sure he knows me either. Part 3. Morning light and heavy hearts. When morning light crept through the curtains, I finally closed my eyes for a few minutes. But the moment I opened them again, the weight of the night returned. My chest felt tight, heavy. I moved slowly toward the kitchen, my knees aching as they always did these days. I boiled water for tea and stared at the rising steam, trying to gather my scattered courage. He walked in, humming as though the world had been kind to him. "Morning?" he said, not looking at me. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. He didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He sat at the table, reading the news on his tablet. "Eggs," he said casually, as if ordering a maid. I usually made them. I always made them. But today something inside me resisted. I turned slowly. "You can make them yourself," I said softly. He looked up, surprised, not angry, just confused, as though he couldn't imagine me saying no. He shrugged and went to the fridge, but when he bent down to grab the carton of eggs, his hand slipped. The carton fell and cracked on the floor, egg yolks spreading like small suns across the tiles. He cursed loudly and bent to clean them up. I should have helped. For 50 years I always helped, but I just watched, with empty eyes, a hollow heart. He glanced at me, waiting for me to get down on my knees like I always did. I didn't move. "Margaret," he said, annoyed now. "Are you going to stand there or?" I took a deep breath, and then something happened, something neither of us expected. Part 4. The collapse. His breath hitched. He pressed his hand to his chest, and for a moment the world stood still. "James," I whispered. His face contorted, his body wavered, and then, before I could reach him, he collapsed onto the kitchen floor, right into the mess of broken eggs. I screamed. His body convulsed once, then went still. I grabbed the phone with trembling fingers and dialed emergency services. My voice cracked as I gave them our address. My husband, cruel, distant, cold, was lying unconscious at my feet, and panic battled with heartbreak inside me. Even after everything, he was still the man I married. And I was still the woman who loved him. Tears streamed down my face as I knelt beside him. "James, please stay with me," I begged. The paramedics arrived quickly. They lifted him, checked his pulse, applied oxygen. "He's having a cardiac episode," one of them told me. Cardiac episode. Heart. The same heart that once loved me, hated me, ignored me, and now was betraying him. As they loaded him into the ambulance, I whispered, "I'm coming. James, I'm right here." My hands shook the whole way, and I prayed not for forgiveness, not for healing, but for one more chance. One more chance to understand what went wrong. One more chance to hear the truth. One more chance to say goodbye whichever way fate intended. Part 5. Hospital curtains and old ones. Hospitals have a smell you never forget, sterile, cold, too clean to be comforting. I sat in a hard plastic chair outside his room, wringing my scarf between my hands. My heart pounded each time a doctor walked by. Hours passed like slow-moving shadows. Finally the doctor approached me. "He's stable," she said gently. "Stable." A word that shouldn't feel so fragile but did. "You can see him now." I stepped him. Lay there, hooked to wires, oxygen tubes framing his face. He looked smaller somehow, older, more human. His eyes fluttered open, and for the first time in years he looked at me, not through me, not past me, but directly at me. "Margaret," he whispered. I swallowed hard. "I'm here." He blinked slowly. "I heard you calling me." I nodded. He hesitated, then said something unexpected. "You still care." A sob escaped me before I could stop it. "Of course I care. You're my husband." He looked away, shame flickering in his eyes. Something new, something rare, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Remorse. "I didn't mean," he whispered. His voice cracked. And suddenly, I wasn't looking the cold man who insulted me. I was looking at the young man I married, scared, imperfect, human. Part 6. The confession. "I know what you heard," he said quietly, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes. My breath stopped. He knew. He knew I had been standing there. And he let me go to bed with those words in my chest. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you say something so cruel?" He swallowed hard. "I was angry," he said. "Myself. At my aging body, my failing health, my regrets." He closed his eyes. "And I took it out on you because you were safe. Because you wouldn't leave me." His words pierced deeper than any insult. "You think I'm safe to hurt," I whispered. He opened his eyes, guilt spreading across his face. "Not safe to hurt, safe to love me despite it." I looked at him for a long moment. The man who hurt me had also hurt himself. But pain does not excuse cruelty. And yet, he reached for my hand with trembling fingers. "Margaret," he whispered. Tears slid down his temples. Real tears, not excuses. Not deflection, just raw. Part 7. What love really means. At 73 we sat in silence. Both crying quietly, both lost in years of unspoken wounds. Finally I whispered what had been burning inside me. "You don't get to call your wife a fat hippo." He flinched. "I didn't soften it. I carried your child. I cooked for you. I cared for you when your back went out. I stayed by your side through layoffs, through nights you came home drunk, through every storm. I stayed." My voice trembled. "And you reduced me to an animal." He covered his face with his hands and sobbed. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "No," I said, "you don't." He lowered his hands and looked at me with trembling fear. "But I'm still here," I said softly. Hope flickered in his eyes. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But hope. Part 8. The morning that changed everything. James stayed in the hospital for 5 days. 5 days of reflection. 5 days of conversations we should have had decades ago. 5 days of truth spilling out, messy, painful, necessary. On the 5th morning, as sunlight filtered through the blinds, James took my hand. "I want to be better," he whispered. "For however many years I have left. I want to be the man you married, not the man I became." I blinked back tears. "Then be him," I whispered. He nodded slowly, as though making a solemn vow. And then he did something that broke me open completely. He lifted my hand to his lips and kissed it. Not like a husband. Like a man who had realized the treasure he had taken for granted. I exhaled shakily. And in that moment the morning truly changed everything, because for the first time in years I felt seen, healed, human, loved. Part 9. A different kind of ending. The next weeks were slow and tender. He apologized often, sometimes clumsily, sometimes beautifully. He started making his own breakfast. He began thanking me for the small things. He went to counseling, alone, then with me. He even began helping around the house. And he stopped commenting on my body completely. Instead, one night, as I tucked myself into bed, he whispered, "You're beautiful to me." I was blind not to see a lump rose in my throat. Because beauty isn't about a body. It's about loyalty, kindness, years of shared battles. I'm not naive. Healing isn't magic, forgiveness isn't instant, pain doesn't evaporate. But we try, together, and some nights, when he sleeps with his hand loosely resting in mine, I watch him breathe and think maybe love isn't about staying perfect. Maybe it's about staying. Even when it hurts. Even when it breaks. Even when it feels impossible. Part 10. Grandma's unfiltered tears. Now that I am older, now that my body is softer and my heart wiser, I understand something I didn't before. A woman's worth is not measured by her waistline, nor by the cruel words of a man, not even by the mistakes of a husband she loves. A woman's worth is measured by her resilience, her courage, her ability to rise when someone tries to push her down. The morning after he insulted me changed everything. Not because he collapsed, not because he apologized, but because I changed. I found my voice, I found my strength. I found the truth of who I am. And even now when I sit by the window sipping tea, the memory brings tears, soft, unfiltered, honest tears, not of pain, Because despite everything I am still here, still standing, still loving, still living, still me, and finally, that is enough. Thanks for watching.